Hello everybody, welcome to the instructions for your final portfolio. So this is basically, if I was showing the instructions in class, I would basically just read them to the class. So instead of doing it in class, you can watch me read them in this video. So what I've done is I've given short instructions and then longer instructions. So the short instructions are just the assignment at a glance. So your portfolio will consist of basically two parts. The first part, a heavily revised and rewritten version of your short story. That's worth 20%. Length is 6 to 8 pages, so possibility to make it slightly longer than the first draft. And please also include the rough draft I gave back to you with my comments. Um, in addition to that, 2 to 3 revised or rewritten shorter pieces. And these, so for that, you can revise either the poem that you handed in earlier in the semester, the short dialogue that you handed in, or any of the homework assignments. For that matter, the classroom assignments as well you can do. The length, 4 to 6 pages, so that's the total for all pieces. So if you're revising 2 pieces, they could be 2 pages each, or one could be 1 page, the other could be 3 pages. If you have 3 pieces, they'll be a bit shorter. You get it. And if you're revising the poem or the short dialogue, then please include the rough draft I gave back to you with my comments. For any of these, if you don't have the rough draft, if you've lost it, then just print out a version of the rough draft without my comments, but I would prefer the one with my comments, so please look for it. I'm adding a stipulation as well, which is each of you must meet me once in my office to discuss your short story prior to submitting your portfolio. I will not accept it without this meeting. So you can meet me anytime starting today, so today is April 12th for me, until May 11th. You have a month basically to come and talk to me in my office. I'll talk more about that when I get to the longer versions. Submission date. So it's going to be due the Tuesday after class ends. Tuesday, May 15th by the end of the day. You may submit your work in 2 ways. Now, I had dreamed of making your final portfolio a WordPress blog, but due to time constraints, you haven't made a WordPress blog. So I'm going to give you the option to make a WordPress blog if you want to. I'm going to make an instructional video like this one, where I show you how to create a WordPress blog. It's really easy to do. So if you want to publish your work as a WordPress blog, you can. If you choose this option, you'll still need to give me the rough draft of each piece in person, plus the cover letters if you don't want to post them. So that's an option. If you don't want to make a WordPress blog, if you don't want your work to be public. If you don't feel like you have the time to make a WordPress blog, then a simple printed out hard copy will do just fine. So if you choose this option, you have to hand in all components in a pocket folder. Each component must be clearly labeled and stapled individually. Please staple it or I won't grade it. And so you would have to, come back into school on Tuesday, May 15th to hand it in, or hand it in before then, etc., etc. If you need an extension, like for example, if you're not in school May 15th, but you're in school May 16th, then ask me in person before May 11th, and I can grant you an extension. That's not a problem. And if you're not going to be in school after the last day of classes, then finish your portfolio by the last day of classes. I'm just giving you a bit of extra time. Late portfolios will be deducted 5% per day if you don't ask for an extension. And after May 21st, if you didn't give me your portfolio, it will officially be too late. Okay, so the short instructions, the longer instructions. So first for the final draft. So I'll just read it. With your workshop, my comments, and in-class meeting with me, and possibly your oral presentation, you should have some ideas on how to revise your short story. Keeping in mind Seller's idea that revision means re-seeing, I expect your piece to be heavily rewritten. Almost every single story in this class needs to be rewritten by about 50 to 75%. That's pretty much across the board. There's a couple of people that possibly could get away with revising a bit less. Their draft was a bit more advanced, in which case I would have written that on your comments. Okay, so unless I wrote on your comments you only need to revise 25%, then figure that you're in this 50 to 75% range. That's how writing works for everybody. Welcome to the club. Now, I expect a significantly different version than the one that you handed in for your rough draft. It isn't just a matter of fixing up a few sentences or a few typos. Really, open a new Word document and start again. What I do when I revise is I usually print out my first draft, keep it on my table, open up a new draft and just start writing again. And that way I can still use anything that I want from my rough draft, but I'm also rethinking it in a new way. Your story can also be expanded. So there were a few of them that didn't quite have an ending, so you can make it longer if you want to. You don't have to. So most of you, yeah, most of you have about a page or two from your first draft that you can use going forward, whether that's page or two in one place or throughout the whole draft. So roll up your sleeves and get to work. That's my inspirational message. So the length, you're gonna have to have a 2-page cover letter, which I'll discuss in a moment. And then a 6 to 10 page short story. Now, in terms of the textbook, for your rough draft, I asked you to use 4 principles from the practice of creative writing. Now I'm going to ask you to use 5. I'm adding 1. So use 1 principle from each of these chapters. So 1 from images, 1 from energy, 1 from tension, 1 from insight, 1 from revision. So 5 principles in total. These principles are valuable in revision. And just to make it clear, what a principle is, no, that won't work. Perhaps I will, oh, sorry. I'll come back to that in a second. But you know what the principles are. It's the same thing as for your rough draft, but with 1 more. There you go. Okay, cover letter. So as usual, you'll submit a cover letter. This time it's going to be a bit longer. I'm asking for a little bit more. So let's say 2 pages double spaced. There's 3 subjects that you need to cover. And as long as you cover these, like I've put a lot of questions in number 2 and number 3, you don't have to answer all of these questions. These are here to inspire you. But I do want to know how your experience rewriting it was and your experience in the course. So first of all, how did you use the textbook? So like you did with your rough draft, tell me which of the 5 principles you used. Clearly identify them. That's something that not everybody did. Like I used moving around in images from page 120 or whatever. And explain briefly how did you use it. If you used, you can use the same principle as your first draft, or you can use a different one. That's up to you. If you feel like you were working it with your first draft, but it didn't really nail it, then you can use the same one. So if you use the same one, did revisiting it help or not? Do you feel you were effective in using these principles? Why or why not? And how was your experience rewriting? What's the main thing you tried to focus on? Do you like your revision better? What specifically is stronger? Anyway, you can read these questions. There's a bunch of questions. And number 3, how was your experience in this course? So number 3 is more of a global reflection on your experience in the course. What's one lesson from this class you think will stick with you? Something you think you improved on, something you want to keep working on, anything else that inspires you, any other comments. Keep in mind, these are comments about your experience and your progress in the course. I will send out a course evaluation where you can actually give me your thoughts about the class and me and the textbook and things like that. But that's this cover letter is not the place for that. Okay, office meeting. The reason I'm making this a stipulation is almost nobody came to see me in my office this semester, and I really do think it's the way I can be most helpful is just to talk to you one-on-one. So come and see me anytime between now and May 11th. It's ideal if you can like rework your story and bring me a rewritten version so we can look at that. If you're stuck and you don't know where to start, just bring in the version that you submitted for the workshop and I'll, ask me questions or anything else regarding to your portfolio that you want to talk about. The meeting should take between 10 and 20 minutes. If it's during my office hours, you don't need to make an appointment. If it is outside of my office hours, you do. Subject matter, a few rules. So same thing, you can't write about a crime, a murder, or anything involving gangsters or criminals. Your characters must have names. You have to have 2 or 3 main characters in your piece. You can have secondary characters, but most of the action must be focused on the 2 or 3 main characters. Keep in mind the work we've been doing all semester. The story is meant to be a measuring stick for your ability to assimilate the concepts we've been working on all semester. I'm going to add another thing here. I'm just thinking of things as they come up, and in fact, I think I'll add them. Is that if you want, I won't write it now because I have to reformat things, but if you want to write a completely new story, if you hate your story, that is possible. I would say come and speak to me about it. So that would be a good thing to talk about in the office meeting. If you want to just write a completely new story, it's possible. I would prefer if you revise the one you've already started to do, though. Grading criteria is here, so you can read them, but it's basically all, in a nutshell, the stuff we've been working on this semester. And then I'll give you a grade out of 20 based on this criteria. I will, if you write on the blog, if you create a blog, I'll put the comments on the blog. Otherwise, you can come and pick up your portfolio from me, but I imagine most people won't do that. So I will send comments by mail. So please read my comments because I will say nice things about your work. So that's the short story. That's worth 20%, and then shorter rewritten pieces are worth 10%. So altogether, the 2 or 3 shorter pieces should be 4 to 6 pages, and this could be 2 or 3 pieces. So here's the thing: each piece should be in a different genre. So essentially, you're going to have at least 3 different genres in your portfolio. Your short story is fiction, and in the shorter pieces, it shouldn't be fiction. You can write poetry, so one of the fixed forms in chapter 10. You can write a drama, a stage play. You can write a screenplay for the screen or a comic. Again, they have to be rewritten versions of your work, so the same kind of percentage, 50 to 70% rewritten. You can make them longer, you can make them shorter. Look, you might rewrite it and prefer your original. Great, you didn't lose anything, you still have your original, but it's an exercise. These pieces don't need to be as polished as your short story. That's important. So the short story I'm expecting to be polished. These don't necessarily have to be polished. You can experiment more. And if these kind of don't work out, that's fine. No problem. A work you can choose from. So the poem, meaning the poem that you submitted, the short dialogue, or any homework or class assignment. So for each piece you revise, I'm going to ask you to choose one principle from any chapter of the practice of creative writing to focus on. So 4, 5, 6, or 8. And I will ask you to write a cover letter for each piece. It can be shorter, so minimum half a page, maximum 1 page. So just like a chunky paragraph or a couple of small paragraphs. So which piece is this? Did you revise the poem, the short dialogue, or homework assignment? What principle from the textbook did you focus on? Did you find the principle useful? Etc., etc. Some notes about your revision. And how you'll be graded for the shorter rewritten pieces, you have them here. And I'll give you a grade out of 10. Again, I'll put those comments in the mail. So that's it. If you have questions, you can write them in the comments in this post, below this post, or ask me in class tomorrow. Thank you for watching my instructional video. Have a nice day.